Good day and welcome back to another DB Legends video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the performance, and also the build and just everything you kind of want to know about the Magenta character. So this is Green Sparking Magenta. He was one of the banner units that came out with the anniversary, and yeah, obviously big question. He was a 1% sparking, whatever it is. The big question is, how do you use him? So his whole gimmick is to be defeated. So his abilities are kind of support based in the process of setting up for when he is defeated. But his literal existence is to be, beaten in battle. That's basically his whole purpose. Not that he's terrible, not like he's just fodder to be thrown out. But if you're going to get hit by an opponent's Rising Rush, if you are needing to use someone to take a full combo from the opponent, he is the guy. So on his strike attacks, he gives a 10% damage received debuff to the opposition. He does the same on his blast attacks. On his special move, he cancels enemy buffs. He gives them increased damage, and he also gives them increased damage received to damage inflicted during final counters. So this is important. Getting off his special move increases his on-death ability, which is pretty important. His special skill, his green card, is pretty cool. Nullification of cover change, which is really solid. Nullification of enemy's health when it reaches 0. Restoring key during a new card. The big thing about him is you can't increase his health. Well, you can't heal him. Like, you can obviously through ally skills, but he has no way to heal himself, and that's by design. Remember, he wants to be beaten. His main ability draws a special arts card, restores his own key, gives 50% to damage inflicted, which is all pretty solid stuff. But the main thing is obviously his unique ability. He deals major explode damage when he's defeated. If there is a remaining battle member. Obviously, if there's no remaining battle members, there's no point his counter going off. But yeah, it will be dealt to nearby enemies. He will basically do an AoE one, which is pretty good. He has 90% to damage inflicted, 50% to strike damage inflicted, reduced damage received by 60%, which is quite low, but again, he's kind of designed to to be defeated. Plus 30% to damage inflicted during final counter for 80 timer counts, and plus 60% to damage inflicted during final counter for 40 timer counts. So basically, the earlier you get it off, the more damage it's going to do. Essentially is, to cut a long story short, what it's kind of about. He does nullify the ability to be paralyzed, which is pretty interesting. But then he has a whole bunch of buffs that he applies to the rest of the party. So the more time that has elapsed, he increases the damage inflicted by a powerful opponent, android or green type characters. So 15% after 40 timer counts, 20 after 80. And then also he applies the following effects if he's defeated. So he heals his allies' health. Again, powerful opponents, androids, green. After 40 timer counts, a 15% heal and then a 20% heal, which is all pretty good. Okay. Then he also has a knockback, which is pretty good against strike arts. And yeah, basically every time an enemy is hit with this enemy's arts card while he's on the field, he'll restore your ally's health, which is pretty interesting. Again, can't restore his own health, but he will restore an ally's health, which is pretty good. So he's definitely a support type character. The whole goal, I guess, of his existence is to take hits, eat combos, die, and then buff the rest of your team, which is fine. He even has, in terms of the ability, even though he's a strike-based unit, I believe his Z ability gives base strike and blast defense, and then it gives base blast attack. So he doesn't even give a strike attack. Like usually if a unit's a melee unit or a strike unit, they'll give strike attack because that's kind of what they want to buff for themselves. But he's so much of a buffing unit, he gives blast attack because Androids is currently a blast team. So he literally isn't even designed to kind of do damage. He's designed to blow up, which is pretty cool. Or at least, for me, when I say pretty cool, it's interesting. Yeah, it's like, okay, that's a interesting design philosophy behind them, and I think in that sense it's good. I do think like you need to have that kind of you know how can I say, enjoyment or interesting gameplay to characters, even if it is a bit gimmicky. I think it's really really good. I think with final counter units, you need to be a bit careful with how you use them because traditionally, they can kind of come off like a bit of a wet noodle, especially if you don't get the final counter off against the right enemy, if you don't set yourself up properly, if you don't debuff the enemy, if the enemy has like these very big, damage reduction debuffs or inter combo debuffs or just anything like that. I think you have to be a little bit careful with how you utilize final counter units. With that being said, I do think they are very interesting units. The whole idea of being defeated to boost the rest of your team and cause big AoE damage is always something that's quite an interesting strategy. And especially now with the purple cell that's around, you'll notice that people are running like these all kamikaze lineups, I guess is what you'd call them, where players are essentially sacrificing like two of their units or one of their units and just causing a huge chunk of damage. And it makes the opponent very wary of who they're having receive that damage. That's the big thing that it forces your opponent to do, is they can't just knock out your unit. If I've got a green unit and I'm about to take out Cell, for example, I can't do that because Cell's final counter ability is going to give me a nightmare. And it's the same thing with Magenta. Any blue unit isn't really going to want to knock him out. And what's good with him is he has some really good abilities to help set that up. He can remove buffs from enemies, he can nullify their abilities to revive, etc. And he's a solid enough counter to have against blue units. Now the question is, what blue units are you exactly countering? I think right now the biggest blue units are LF17 and the Sword of Hope Trunks, and I think that's okay. I think that's good enough for him to counter in terms of units. I think that's a pretty good space for him to be in. Obviously, to each their own, so to say. It's just going to depend a little bit on like how you rock with him as a unit. But yeah, generally speaking, you have that ability to kind of force your opponent's hand if they are featuring any of those blue units. They're not going to want to specifically run a situation whereby they end up getting that final counter off against their blues. But Magenta is good. Like here you can see perfect case scenario. We're not scared to switch Magenta in, because we're going to get off the final counter. And so that's his purpose. Why let one of our units take the damage? He's low on health. Let him get off the final counter. Excellent damage, and yeah, all of a sudden the opponent's health is just ripped through. And now they're in a situation where they're on the back foot. Their lineup doesn't have a lot of health. Yes, we're one unit down, but they're essentially one attack away from three of their units falling out. So it's a pretty interesting kind of thing. And I think the final counter units, you always have to accept that because their role is to be defeated. It's always a catch-22 scenario of do I sacrifice them now, or do I try to keep them going a bit longer, or what am I doing to kind of enhance or facilitate or really allow them to do the most, whilst also maximizing the fact that the being defeated portion of their gameplay style is really important. I think that's something you also have to accept as well, and that's it is just one of those things, unfortunately. So for me overall, I'd have to say probably on the spectrum of saying that Magenta is a solid enough support option. think the big thing is obviously just whether you need him. Your Androids is pretty strong right now, and I don't know if Magenta is really someone you need, but his Z abilities are good, and he's a solid counter option to Blues. So yeah, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give me your thoughts if you've used him, or what you think about final counter units, and yeah, see you next time. Bye.